The boss's daughter replaced me with her fiancé after 22 years of my loyal service. I said nothing, just handed over every password. Days later, the company collapsed into chaos. My name is Raymond Clark. Today I want to tell you my story about being replaced by pride and buzzwords, and what happened when I gave them exactly what they asked for. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and comment below where you're watching from. I'm 52 years old and have spent most of my life as an infrastructure strategist at CoreWave Systems, a major tech firm in Phoenix, Arizona. For over 2 decades, I built and protected the company's operating backbone, the systems no one saw but everyone depended on. I wasn't flashy or loud. I was steady, precise, and committed. But that meant little to the new leadership. To them, I was outdated. Just another part of the old machinery they were eager to scrap. I never played the political game. While others fought for credit or climbed the social ladder, I kept our operations stable. I made sure every byte of data landed where it should, every server held firm, and every transaction went through without a hitch. Quiet results. That was me. Then came Olivia Weller, the owner's daughter, freshly minted MBA, early 30s, and clueless about how anything really worked. She wanted change. And to modernize, she needed to sweep out people like me, the ones who actually understood what held the company together. If you like stories of calculated revenge and unexpected fallout, go ahead and like this video. This channel posts daily, and today's twist might be the sharpest yet. It all turned on an early weekday in spring. Olivia called me into her frosted glass executive suite. The clicking of her branded leather stilettos echoed as she typed without looking up. "Raymond, we're taking a new approach," she said, her voice icy and detached. "We want modern ideas. Your role's being phased out." The words hit hard, but I held my measured presence. "Understood. May I ask who's taking over system oversight?" Only then did she glance up, a smirk of false confidence spreading across her face. "My fiancé, Bryce Kendall. He's well-versed in AI and machine learning. It's time we upgraded properly." Bryce Kendall. I remembered him from the year-end staff banquet. Mid-30s, always talking about predictive algorithms, but didn't know the basics of networking. The kind of guy who used terms like transformational ecosystems without understanding load balancing. "I'll need everything by Friday," Olivia added, already focused back on her screen. "Passwords, documentation, and full procedures. The personnel division will finalize your severance." I gave a slow nod, already seeing the cracks forming. "I'll make sure everything is ready." What she didn't realize was that she'd just made the costliest decision in CoreWave's history. The system I designed wasn't just wires and code. It was built on years of layered insight. How each system talked to the next, where the faults could surface, and how to catch them before they spread. Sure, I'd give her every chart and password, but what they lacked couldn't be printed or taught in a few days. For the next 3 days, I worked methodically. I prepared encrypted passwords, mapped every dependency, wrote precise emergency protocols, and built a weighty manual folder thicker than most people's careers. But here's the truth. Manuals are bones. The muscle, instinct, and understanding live in the person who built the skeleton. Knowing that server cluster L always overheats during Friday's load spikes. That's not in any document. Neither is the fact that the backup power triggers a 30-second delay during peak hours, requiring manual reset. That knowledge, it dies with the person they pushed out. Friday afternoon arrived. Bryce swaggered into the infrastructure hub in a freshly pressed office shirt and designer jeans, utterly unfit for the environment. His confidence was nearly convincing. Until he spoke. "So, Raymond," he said, barely acknowledging the documentation, "I've been exploring AI-driven maintenance. We can automate like 90% of this, right?" I handed him the folder. "It's all there. Passwords, schedules, backups, critical fail-safes." He skimmed a few pages, his eyes clouded as he hit the technical sections. "Looks simple. I've dealt with tougher setups." "I'm sure you have," I said evenly. What he didn't know or pretended not to, was that his past roles were entry-level gigs at startups that didn't last 2 years. Olivia had boosted his resume to justify his position, but I'd checked Career Connect. The truth was public. Monday was my final day. I boxed up my things, shook a few hands, and left CoreWave Systems behind. A few teammates pulled me aside with quiet concern. "Are you sure this is okay?" Lena Patel, our lead network specialist, asked. Bryce seemed excited, but he asked me what TCP/IP meant. I gave a small smile. "I'm sure Olivia and Bryce have it under control." I didn't need to say more. I had already done everything right. What came next? That was entirely on them. As I drove home in my aging silver sedan, a strange calm settled over me. I'd done everything I was supposed to. Every step documented, every system explained, every risk outlined. If something went wrong, it wouldn't be because I failed. It would be because they traded experience for empty confidence. I spent the following days updating my resume and reconnecting with old colleagues. The severance from CoreWave was generous. Gerald Weller, the company's founder, had always treated me with respect. His only blind spot was his daughter, Olivia. Then, a little over a week after I left, my phone rang on a midweek evening. It was Lena Patel, calling from her personal number. "Raymond," she said urgently, "we've got a serious issue. The systems are overheating. Bryce ran some kind of AI optimization this afternoon, and now half the servers are redlining. The backup cooling isn't kicking in." I felt a tight pull in my stomach. What did he change exactly? "He rewrote the thermal management protocols," she replied. "Said the old settings were too conservative, claimed the AI would improve energy use by 30%. That system was one of our most sensitive components. It had to be tuned precisely for seasonal loads and quirks in our HVACs. Bryce had effectively performed surgery with a blindfold. Lena, listen. Go to panel L4. There's a manual override. I left the full procedure in the documentation." "We tried," she said, "but Bryce won't let anyone touch it. He says reverting would mean admitting he failed." And right then, I knew this was only the beginning. Pride mixed with ignorance is lethal when you're running infrastructure that processes millions in transactions daily. I thanked her and hung up. Then I poured a drink and sat back in my leather armchair waiting. The system was durable, but not immune to carelessness. By just before 7 a.m. that Friday, the call finally came. Gerald Weller was on the line, his voice barely steady. "Raymond, thank God you picked up. We need you back. Everything's down. Financial records, customer data, orders. It's a disaster." I put down my ceramic office mug and glanced out the window at my quiet Phoenix neighborhood. "What exactly happened?" I asked. "Bryce tried to upgrade something. Now servers are overheating, backups won't respond, and alerts are going off across the board. Olivia's panicking. We've already lost 3 major clients, and if this isn't fixed by Monday, we're finished." The irony wasn't lost on me. The same man who watched me be replaced was now pleading for help. "I need to assess the damage before I decide," I replied. "Give me remote access, and I'll take a look." "Whatever you need," he said quickly. "Tell me what it'll take." 2 hours later, I was staring at the worst system failure I'd seen in my career. Bryce hadn't just altered the thermal settings. He'd rewritten the core infrastructure management logic. It was like trying heart surgery using online tutorials. One mistake triggered another. The overheating caused shutdowns. That pushed all activity to the remaining servers, which overloaded. The backup power cycled erratically, corrupting database checksums. That, in turn, locked the system under our security protocols, mistaking it for a breach. Then the texts came in, first from Olivia. "Mr. Clark, I know we didn't see eye to eye, but please help us. I was wrong about Bryce. We need you." Then from Bryce himself. "Mr. Clark, I may have seriously misjudged things. Can you come in and walk us through what went wrong?" Calling it a misjudgment was like calling a plane crash a rough landing. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from the executive committee, department heads, even clients who somehow had my number. Word had spread fast across Phoenix's tech scene. CoreWave Systems was in free fall. That afternoon, I returned, not as an employee, but as a consultant. The parking lot was chaotic. Reporters, frazzled staff, even what looked like investigators. Inside the front lobby checkpoint, Olivia met me. She looked visibly shaken, hair messy, clothes wrinkled, eyes red with exhaustion. "Ray, I'm sorry," she said, barely able to stand still. "I made a huge mistake. I thought I had it all figured out. I didn't." Behind her stood Bryce, frozen, his look one of sheer disbelief. His once confident posture was, as gone, replaced by the weight of total collapse. "Mr. Clark," Bryce said quietly, barely above a whisper, "I think I underestimated how complex the system really was. The AI algorithms I added must have clashed with the legacy infrastructure." Legacy infrastructure. That's what he called 2 decades of refined, field-tested code that had never once failed under my care. I spent the next 4 hours inside the infrastructure hub, tracing the wreckage. It was worse than I expected. The databases were corrupted beyond immediate repair and had to be restored from backups that were already 3 days old. At least 6 servers showed hardware damage from overheating. The full system lockdown had triggered compliance alarms that would lead to federal audits, and likely hefty fines. But the worst wound wasn't physical. It was the company's name. In this industry, news travels fast. By Monday, all of Phoenix would know CoreWave's meltdown was rooted in poor leadership. As I worked, I could hear Olivia in a nearby office, her voice cracking as she tried to calm clients. She was offering refunds, vague excuses, and apologies that couldn't undo the damage. At around 8 o'clock that night, Gerald Weller stepped into the room. He looked like a man who'd watched his life's work fall apart in front of him. "Raymond, I owe you an apology," he said. "I never should have let Olivia make that call. You built the core of this company, and I let her replace you because I couldn't admit she wasn't ready." I didn't stop working as I answered. I followed every protocol. I left detailed training. Everything they needed was right there. They just ignored it. He hesitated. "What would it take to bring you back? Not just to fix this. I mean to keep this from ever happening again." I paused, then looked him in the eye. 5-year contract. Director of Infrastructure Strategy. I report directly to the executive committee, not Olivia. Full control over technical decisions. And Bryce, he's out. Immediately. "Done," Gerald said without blinking. "Olivia's being moved to marketing. Somewhere she can't touch our operations again." That night, I stayed until late into the night, slowly breathing life back into the system. Full recovery would take weeks, but the immediate crisis was finally under control. As I left, I passed Bryce packing his things. He glanced up, showing the look of sheer disbelief. His pride had collapsed into realization. "Mr. Clark, I thought I understood architecture," he said. "I was wrong." "Experience is a harsh teacher," I told him, "but it's the only one that really matters." The next few weeks became a crash course in recovery. I was clocking 18-hour days, rebuilding what had been carelessly undone. The media latched onto the story. The Phoenix Tech Ledger ran a headline, "System Meltdown, When Hype Replaces Skill." They didn't name me directly, but those who knew the industry knew exactly who had saved the ship. I restored the backups, replaced damaged systems, and designed new safeguards to prevent this from ever happening again. I also documented every mistake, turning the disaster into a case study future teams could learn from. Olivia tried to redeem herself. She showed up to every meeting, asked questions, took notes, but the trust was gone. The executive committee no longer saw her as the company's future. Her father's disappointed glances said everything. The federal audit was brutal. Due to compliance failures triggered by the lockdown, CoreWave paid $2.3 million in penalties. The investigation by the Federal Trade Compliance Authority took half a year. 3 major clients walked away, $8.7 million gone in recurring revenue. But the true damage wasn't in dollars. It was in trust. Once your reputation cracks in tech, the entire industry feels the tremor. Conferences, forums, and Career Connect threads all buzzed with the same warning, nay, let buzzwords outrank competence. My new role came with a substantial salary, an executive workspace, and, most importantly, the power to make technical calls without interference. For the first time in my career, I had the respect I'd quietly earned for years. Half a year later, I spoke at the Western Innovation Summit. The room was packed. Technology officers, senior developers, architects. My talk, "The Hidden Costs of Technical Debt," became one of the most downloaded papers from the event. During the Q&A, a young engineer asked, "What matters more, documentation or experience?" I thought of Bryce. "Documentation matters," I said, "but it doesn't teach judgment. A manual shows you what button to push. Experience tells you when not to." The crowd laughed, but I wasn't joking. That single difference nearly cost CoreWave its life, and $10 million. As for Olivia, her role in tech ended quietly. She was reassigned, then slowly faded into a background role in marketing. She couldn't cause more damage, but she never regained the trust she lost. But even in marketing, Olivia struggled. Clients who knew about the system failure didn't trust her opinion, even on routine matters. 18 months later, she quietly left CoreWave Systems, taking a junior position at a startup in Reno. It folded within a year. Bryce's downfall was even more dramatic. Tech is a small world, and word spreads fast. His Career Connect profile became a cautionary tale in dev forums. Every job interview circled back to one question: what happened at CoreWave? The last I heard, he was working at a tiny firm as a help desk technician, making a fraction of what he earned pretending to be a systems expert. The irony didn't escape me. Olivia had fired me to bring in someone who supposedly understood the future, but what she really brought in was someone fluent in buzzwords, not systems. Theories over reality, promises over performance. 5 years down the line, I announced my retirement from CoreWave. The company was thriving again. Stable systems, smart staff, and documentation that truly meant something because the people reading it finally understood it. At my farewell reception, Gerald Weller gave a speech I'll never forget. He spoke openly about the near collapse and how my return had saved them from total ruin. But more than that, he spoke about what the experience had taught them. "Raymond reminded us that progress doesn't mean replacing what works," Gerald said. "It means building on it, with care, with knowledge, and with respect for those who carried the torch before us." In retirement, I began consulting for smaller tech firms, helping them avoid the mistakes that nearly crushed CoreWave. I mentored young engineers, reminding them that technical skills alone aren't enough. You also need judgment, patience, and a deep respect for the complexity behind every system you touch. 2 years into retirement, I got an unexpected email from Olivia. She had heard about my consulting work and wrote to apologize. She admitted her mistakes, her ego, her assumptions, and the damage they caused. I appreciated her honesty, but I didn't reply. Some lessons come too late. Some bridges burn too completely. Looking back, I realized my story was never about revenge. It was about what happens when confidence is chosen over competence, when enthusiasm is mistaken for experience, when a company bets on flash instead of foundation. Olivia and Bryce didn't fail because of me. They failed because of themselves. I just gave them the documentation. And sometimes the most satisfying response isn't retaliation, it's time. Time exposes the truth. And when it does, no rebuttal is needed. That was my story. And even now, some moments still echo louder than others. Maybe you've been through something like it, or maybe don't. It just made you think a little differently. Either way, I'd love to hear your take. What would you have done in my shoes? Drop a comment below and let's talk. And if this story stayed with you, don't forget to subscribe, because the next one might just hit even closer to home.